What's up, guys? Jay Thorpe, Flexwork Fitness. Apologize for not making any videos recently. I've been kind of laid up with my back a little bit, so I haven't been able to make too many training videos. Today, somebody asked me another great question, which is pretty much how all these videos are stemming from, just people asking me questions, and I figure might as well just answer it for everybody. Somebody asked me what books that I would recommend for them to read that are fitness related. Which again, that's a great question. I'm a huge reader. If you guys don't know, I read at least an hour a day, hour to 2 hours a day. And a lot of what I've learned was from the post getting credentialed with the NASM, with the other specializations I have. I actually learned a lot from reading books from people who are out in the field, either studying, people who have kind of been through the grindstone over like 20, 30 years and just kind of compiled what the evidence, anecdotal evidence that they've had, and even a lot of scientific evidence, stuff that's been found in studies. So I'm actually going to break it into different categories because fitness, to me, fitness is just such a broad thing because so many things go into having an overall good fitness level and having overall health. So the first thing we're going to start with is training. Some of these I wrote down. I don't have the physical book of these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a picture somewhere over here of what the book actually looks like and who the author is. So that way if you guys want to check it out, then I'll also link it in the description for you. First book that really helped me as far as the training was Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. So this is actually by Michael Matthews. I don't want to get this wrong. I want to say I'm pretty sure he's a model, definitely. And I want to say he was a competitive athlete as well, either in bodybuilding, class physique, men's physique, I'm not entirely sure. But this was actually one of the first books that I read on fitness, and it was nice because it dispelled a lot of myths that I had regarding training, and then it actually breaks down like he actually tells you about what really happens when you're training and how you elicit the responses. Like, say if your goal is to build muscle, he tells you about the different ways that you can actually elicit hypertrophy, which I believe there's 3 different ways. There's mechanical tension, I think sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, and like muscular damage or cellular fatigue. I don't entirely remember off the top of my head. But this book was nice, and it's great for beginners. It's great for people who are intermediates, not idiots. As far as advanced trainees, it could be a good foundation for them, but they're going to have to definitely do a lot more. And I think he gears this more towards the intermediate and the beginner people. One thing that I really took away from it was intensity is key. I thought that you just go to the gym, just pick stuff up, put it down, do it a bunch of times, and you'll keep getting bigger and bigger and stronger, which volume does play a huge part in getting bigger, but so does intensity. Whenever you factor that in, you actually work out doing 85% of your 1 rep max, which I believe was 4 to 6 rep range, is something that he promotes a lot for the heavy compound work. I never did that. I was one of those guys who just did the 3 sets of 10. And then I did stall to a point because, again, when he explains the different ways you can elicit hypertrophy, different rep ranges kind of play on different things. And again, that was something that really kind of stuck out to me. Again, that was Michael Matthews. He also made, I want to say Thinner, Leaner, Stronger. I believe that was the one he made for women. We're both humans. I mean, there's going to be slight differences in the way we train, but the same foundations are going to apply to men and women. The next one is actually one that I listened to the audiobook. I loved it. Somebody actually told me that a lot was missing in the audiobook, so I actually bought the real book. And it's the 4-Hour Body by Timothy Ferris. If you guys don't know who Timothy Ferris is, he is the man. He's the GOAT. This guy does everything. But what he does really good is he's very good at automating his time. Automating his time. So he's not somebody who likes to waste time. And he gets to that in the book. He tells you how to build a pretty good body using techniques that'll spare and free up a lot of time for you. I thought the book was awesome. I thought it's very great for beginners. I don't know how much he knows per se about like training and things like that. I don't know if this is just maybe he consulted with people or whatever, but it was a great book. There's one section about like female orgasm. It kind of threw me off when I listened to the audiobook. I'm like, did I just pick up a new book or something? But yeah, he goes through that as well. So bonus for you guys. And then another one with the training is the Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This book is massive, though. This isn't like something... I mean, you could, but it's really not something you're just going to sit down and read. It's like 800 pages, I believe. I did read the whole thing. A lot of it's pictures, too. But it's so crazy how back in that time, like, this guy knew a lot. And, like, if you guys realize, like, a lot changes. Like, there's so many different fads. There's so much new research coming out telling you things that, like, 10 years ago we were taught that's completely wrong now. Kind of like with how, like, the villainizing of fats was, and now we're realizing that fats are very, very essential for you. It's something you should be eating. And yeah, he knew his stuff back then. It's pretty cool because he goes a little bit more in depth with different bodybuilding principles. Like he talks about something which I, again, never did until I read the book, was he talked about like drop sets. He talked about different types of supersets, like pyramid sets, things like that. Again, I was just that guy. Maybe I was just naive, but I was just that guy that go in, do his 3 sets of 10 on an exercise, boom, went right to the next thing, and that was a workout for me. And then he goes a lot into the physique aspect of things too, which is pretty cool, especially if you're somebody who wants to build your body up and you want to build like an impressive physique, or if you just want to look good naked. He kind of goes over like the proportions and things like that, like matching your biceps to the same size as your calves, things like that. And he'll show different examples of a lot of the bodybuilders in that era. Yeah, great book. I mean, if you're a bodybuilding fan, you've probably already bought that book. So that's everything for the training. Next, we'll go into the nutrition and recovery. So I'll kind of throw that into one. Again, if you guys have watched my videos, huge advocate of getting a good amount of sleep. So this book, I can never say his last name. It's Chris Idzikowski, but it's Learn to Sleep Well. So it's like a sleeping for dummies book, but it'll go over different good sleep hygiene techniques, like trying to stay off your phone within 30 minutes of bed, like just getting the room to a cooler temperature, just setting yourself up so that you go through these sleep phases and you go through them without interruption, and you're able to get more restful, more quality sleep. Pretty much on that. I mean, again, I'm a huge sleep advocate, and there's another book that I read. I don't remember what it's called. I'm gonna have to look through my, and if I find it out, I'll link it down in the description too. But it's an audio book, and I couldn't find it on the platforms that I listened to. So yeah, there's that one. Learn to Sleep Well. For the dieting, we have one from the American Heart Association. It's called a No-Fad diet. So I'm another person who's not a fan of fad diets. I don't consider things like keto and Atkins like a fad diet, because those are something that you can go pretty much your whole life doing. Something like the grapefruit diet, no, that's a fad diet. It's not, well, it's not the safest thing. I don't want to say it's not safe to eat grapefruits, but if you're eating it all the time, you're probably not getting all the micronutrients you should be. But yeah, the no-fad diet, and even as trainers, that's actually the guidelines that we're supposed to recommend, which is like the U.S. like food pyramid. Well, it's actually the My Plate now. Back when I was in school, it was the food pyramid. Things like that in American Heart Association, we're supposed to show those recommendations to our clients. And they actually have some pretty good recipes in the back too. There's no pictures, which kind of sucks, but I tried a few of the recipes that were pretty good. And then for the more advanced people out there, there's another book. It's called Fat Loss Forever, and it's by, so I actually read that, and I read the contest prep guide by Layne Norton. So Layne Norton, this guy, he is one of the most loved, most hated people. He's hated because he's not biased on what he's telling people. Like he's not like on the keto camp. He's not. I'd say he's a high carb advocate or higher carb advocate, and that's just because the studies have shown that it really doesn't matter which route you're taking. Actually, carbs will probably be a little bit more superior when it comes to muscle building. But getting off topic, so fat loss forever. This guy, like I said, he has a PhD. He knows his stuff. He's unbiased, and like I said, he's going to tell you exactly what happens in the body. He's going to tell you exactly the mechanics of fat loss. He's not going to try to sell you any products or anything like that. Like he's just wants to give you the information. He cuts through all the BS and all the unfounded things that a lot of people teach. So yeah, Fat Loss Forever, great book by Layne Norton. He even has a YouTube channel as well. He puts a lot of content up on there. And then just another book that I've read, I can think off the top of my head, Plant Paradox. I'm not entirely sure who that's by. Again, I'll link that in the description when I find out. That's a pretty cool book. It kind of made me think a little bit, especially like him talking about a lot of the foods that are perceived as healthy will actually cause like an inflammatory response because they're high in lectins. It's a pretty cool book. It's a thinker, Plant Paradox. And then the last thing, something that people really don't think would apply to fitness too much, and that's self-progression. So you can know everything, but if you're not actually putting it into action, if you're not actually building the habits to do it, you're going to get nowhere. I know a lot of trainers who are 30 times smarter than I am, have like 30 times more experience, but they look like shit, honestly, for lack of a more eloquent term. They look like shit. And it's because they don't actually practice the things that they preach. They don't have the mental toughness to actually follow through on stuff that they know they should be doing and should be setting an example to their clients by leading healthy lives. So and this book will actually help you with everything. This book will help you with your finances. This book will help you with any kind of goals that you set out. And it's by my man Darren Hardy. It's called The Compound Effect. So when people, or I should say one of the kind of faults that people have, especially when it comes to like setting like New Year's resolutions, is they just go kind of like balls to the walls right off the gate. Getting in shape, getting healthier, improving your conditioning, whatever your goal is, it's incremental steps. It's day in, day out, small decisions that you make that will lead to this grand goal or this grand vision that you have. So you don't get fat in one day. You don't get fat in a week. Probably could get fat in a couple months. But it's just the decisions that you're making day in and day out. Like it's just very small things. So the decision for you to eat 2 bowls of cereal instead of having, say, eggs and oatmeal for breakfast. Those extra calories, yeah, maybe like 300 more calories in that meal for that day probably isn't going to matter too much. But when you're doing that over the course of like a year, that's going to add up to a few pounds of more calories that you consumed that you didn't need to. And again, your body will put that on. And same thing with fat loss. When you're trying to lose the weight, you don't go to the gym and just burn it off in a day. Like you don't just go on the treadmill for 20 hours and it's like, oh, you're skinny or you're thin. Well, probably you're lean, or what I should say. Again, it's just incremental things. It's just small decisions that you make will have, again, that grand payoff. Compound Effect. Highly recommend that book to everybody. I'm a huge Grant Cardone fan. I love Grant Cardone. And a couple of the books he had, one was the 10X, Be Obsessed or Be Average. I don't have Be Obsessed or Be Average. But I do have the 10X rule. I don't know when to think of that. So, for me, it's just motivation. It's just, I read his words, and then I really challenge myself, like, am I actually putting my all into this? Am I actually making fitness, making my overall health a priority? And motivation things are great. Like I said, they just kind of get you back on track. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So those are the books that have made an impact on me. There's so many more that I've read that I just can't really think of off the top of my head. But those are the ones that definitely stuck out. And like I said, I'll definitely link them in the description below. And I'll also try to find a picture online of what the book looks like. That way, if you guys decide to purchase any, you know what to get. Again, thank you for listening. If you like the video, you can subscribe. If you want to see future content, again, if you have any more questions, please ask. I do not mind answering your questions. It's better for me instead of like texting everybody this individual response, when a lot of people ask me the same questions. Actually, a couple people asked me this months ago, and just kind of forgot about them. But yeah, thanks for listening. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.